All right. Thank you, Cynthia. I'm Sarah Lacefield. I'm the counselor at J.C. Thompson Elementary in Hazlet. And I'll let the other two ladies introduce themselves.
I'm Christy Buse. I am at Kate Granger Elementary, and that is located kind of on the border of Keller ISD. We back right up to it near Cabela's.
And I am Rhonda Hardesty, and I am the elementary counseling intern with Sarah Lacefield at J.C. Thompson Elementary this year.
Yes, we have so appreciated her being there. So we are going to talk about dealing with stress in the family, and this is a very appropriate topic, obviously, for the past year and 4 months of 2020, 2021. And we just want to share some things with you, mainly, like Cynthia said, to just encourage you. We are feeling the stress as well. My family is personally feeling that stress. I have 2 high schoolers. I have a freshman and a junior at Byron Nelson. And it's kind of like, I texted a neighbor the other day and she said, I think we're on the hamster wheel, like we can't get off. And so I know that everyone is feeling that stress. So with that being said, we want to talk about some strategies and some just mindsets and things that will help you keep calm and carry on with your families. So here is what used to be the ideal family.
Leave It to Beaver, starring Barbara Billingsley, Hugh Beaumont, Tony Dow, and Jerry Mathers as the Beaver.
Okay. So obviously, I'm pretty sure even back in the 60s, 50s and 60s when that show was, I'm pretty sure that moms really didn't wear pearls all the time, and they didn't bring out a silver tea set to their boys mowing the lawn, and the boys didn't mow the lawn in their like really nice button-up shirts and, you know, all that stuff. So that was kind of like, not really the ideal, but everyone sort of looked to that family as the ideal. This is really more reality for families.
It's 20 to 7, Dan.
Say, is there any of that bread?
Yes, there is. Is that your subtle way of asking me to bring you the bread?
Sorry, babe, didn't mean to be subtle.
Mom, you have any milk?
Not anymore, but there's some in the fridge.
Nice, Elsie.
Why, if it isn't Becky Connor, long-lost daughter of Dan and Roseanne Connor. So kind of you to join us.
Is this supposed to be dinner?
No, this is the cocktail hour before dinner.
These beans are totally lifeless, Mother. If you'd steam them instead of boiling them, they might be edible.
Is there a problem?
No.
Where were you, Becky?
Hanging out.
Chicken.
Coming at you.
Well, you weren't hanging out here, which is where you're supposed to be hanging out, because you're grounded, remember?
Let's see what you'll come up with now. I forgot, okay? I'm sorry.
Hey, how about losing the attitude, huh? Now, I asked you where you were, and I want an answer.
Mom's waiting, Rebecca. But out, Darlene.
Any answer. Come on, lie to me.
Do you have to know where I am every moment of my life?
Yes.
I was at the mall, okay? I got off the bus, walked directly into Rodbell's, where I met Diane and Sammy. We 3 stood near the entrance to the theaters, goofed on some mall cop named Ronaldo, split some fries, and came home. Is that specific enough?
Who paid for the fries?
Now watch me be specific. Thanks to that nasty, snotty attitude of yours, you get to spend another 7 fun-filled days and nights on the second floor of 714 Delaware Street.
You are not going to ground me for another week.
You want to push it
Mother.
for 2?
You're so weak.
Hey, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, young lady.
I don't want to hear it.
Hey, you apologize to your mother.
You're being totally unfair just because I don't want to eat your stinking beans.
Wrong. I am being totally unfair because that is my job. Now you sit down and have a nice dinner with your family.
I hate you.
Okay. So, okay. So, families of this generation bear little resemblance to the Leave It to Beaver clan. The lifestyles of this generation create a host of stresses on the family, from just economic stress, from just stress of teenage hormones, preteen hormones. I talked to a parent today, a third grader with puberty stuff going on. There's a lot of stress. Stress filters into every aspect of our lives. The old saying, the family should be a place of tranquility and refuge from the external stresses, is not necessarily true anymore. We have it right in front of us all the time. So family life can be just as stressful or even more stressful than just the outside world around us. So I'm going to hand it to Ms. Buse.
So if we were all together or in person, we would be handing out a survey to kind of get a glimpse and see for you to analyze, what are your sources of stress? There are many, many common stressors that families face, which can lead to a disruption of families moving forward. It's very, very normal. So if you have stress, we probably have multiple sources of stress. So this is just a video that we created to kind of let you identify, like, yep, that's in our family. Yep, that's in our family. So this is just a video of some very common stressors within families. So I don't know about you, but when I was going through the list, it was yes, yes, yes. There was probably maybe one or two that I didn't say, but they were probably still there. We face these stressors a lot, and what's really we're going to talk about is stress is very normal, and we'll talk more about that. But if you're having these stress, it's okay. It's really a matter of having that awareness and being able to do something about it. So the sources of stress on families, there's a lot. So if you want to volunteer, I know we have a couple people on, you're more than welcome to type in the chat. Otherwise, we'll just kind of talk briefly about them. So one of the sources of stress is outside influences. So outside influences could be the economy, the world, national crises, or just those local. So, you know, we just had a local Texas crisis in February with the freeze that causes a lot of stress. And then the after effects of that freeze, from pipes bursting to then dealing with insurance and those kinds of things, careers, constantly battling, you know, wanting to work, wanting to provide. How do I share that time with family? And sometimes just jobs can be very demanding. Schooling, childcare. So there's the outside influences, and then there's also the next one is predictable family changes within the family. So a new baby, it's a wonderful thing, but it does create stress and lack of sleep, which can also increase our emotions and reactions to stress. The holidays, wanting that picture perfect holiday, house guests, whether they stay for 3 days or 3 months, that can create a large number of stressors because everything is different. Sibling rivalry, budget, in-laws, the housekeeping, not only just trying to keep up, but what we want from our house and the reality of our house. A lot of times we have those high expectations, and we look around, those high expectations aren't being met. And then vacations, while it's supposed to be fun, there's a lot of planning and a lot of stress, and sometimes we even need a vacation from our vacation. So that's another one. And then the next one, unpredictable changes. So we know that there's going to be changes, and sometimes we can see them coming and other times we can't. So an unexpected illness, a death in the family, or a close relative or friend, separation or divorce, relocating, having to move, whether that's willingly or unwillingly, and financial burdens. So things like the air conditioner going out or needing a new car, and you're not expecting that financial burden, that can create stress because it's the wondering of how are we going to balance all this? And then the last one is just the normal developmental stages of parent and child. So from the very beginning, the newborn, lack of sleep, having to do everything for that child, and then they get a little older, and then that 2-year-old or sometimes even 3-year-old who's asserting that independence, and they don't take no for an answer, and that can create stress. To the young adolescent with the mood swings and the hormones and them knowing everything and you knowing nothing, it can be a frustration. And then as they start to gain independence and even get closer to college and even the possibility of moving out, that stress of my job is now done, now what? What's going to happen now that in a new purpose in life, that can create stress because the unknown can be really, really scary.
So when we start talking about stress, a lot of times, well, most of the time we think that it is negative stress. Most of us, when we say I'm stressed, we don't mean it in a good way, but there is good stress. Okay. So often it can be motivating. Many individuals function at their best when under some kind of stress. Good stress is called eustress. And think about what signs you recognize in yourself when stress just gets to be too much. What are some things, you know, I know for me personally, I'm a little bit of a procrastinator, I'll be honest. If I feel that extra pressure, like something is due like tomorrow, I'm going to really be motivated to get it done. And a lot of times, maybe because I've done it so much, I feel like I do my best work under pressure. So think about, and if anybody would like to share, we would love to hear your thoughts as well. You know, what signs do you see in yourself when you become stressed? But as a child, how did your parents handle stress? And do you see a correlation to how you handle stress because what was modeled for you? So I don't know. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody wanting to share, and that's okay. But I know that even in my family, I was an only child. And so my parents usually handled stress behind closed doors. And so as a child, I didn't really see exactly how to work things out. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to definitely, there's a level, right? We don't want to just lose it and, you know, get upset and whatever in front of our kids. But I think there is a level of working things out in front of your children so that they can see how to problem solve. And even telling them, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Here are my concerns. Here's why I'm feeling a little stressed. Here's how I know I'm stressed. And then here's what I'm doing about it. And so I think a lot of times kiddos come to school and they feel stressed. They don't really know what it is, but they don't really know how to problem solve. So
we had one of our members just say that they recognize stress because they get migraines, which the body does. That's an absolute indicator because the body does show stress in physical ways. From, you know, not only the headaches, I noticed in myself, and I actually didn't notice until my husband said that every time you get stressed, you bite your bottom lip. And I said, oh, okay, I didn't know that. But I can feel my heart rate faster. And, you know, kind of sharing what you were going off of, Sarah, as a child, my parents did not handle it behind closed doors. My parents handled it in front of us, but a lot of times it resorted to yelling. And so I think I kind of grew up in that. And when I was a beginning parent, I think that was my initial go-to. Like I would handle it. And then it was the snap. And then I was upset and I would yell. But my kiddo is a very different kiddo. I was a quiet kiddo and I just absorbed it and I didn't say anything. For my kiddo, when I started doing that, it really stressed her out. It really created a lot of anxiety. And so I had to learn as a parent, okay, this is not the best way to handle this. And I needed to find a new way to handle it because it was creating such dysfunction. But then when I went back and reflected, it was, well, that's what I was modeled. So I thought that that was what we did to handle stress, and really having to relearn that as an adult of what to do instead. What's a healthier way to show that stress?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And Cynthia said that she loves to eat a lot of ice cream when she's stressed. Girl, I'm right with you. That's my go-to. Food, just food. Yes, so it is interesting how we handle stress ourselves often comes from what was modeled for us. And so good or bad, it's good to know that and to kind of be able to establish a way to demonstrate how to handle stress for our kids so that they have a good model to go off of, and also to keep things open communication so that your kids can ask you, you know, I'm feeling this way, what should I do? And you want them to feel safe to be able to come and talk to you about it. Okay.
So a little background story. I was told, or I was asked to share this because of my stories, because that I really identified with this slide. And it says that oftentimes comparisons and holding ourselves up to those unrealistic ideals can create a lot of stress. So what we think it should look like. And social media and TV and all those things, they do not help, because there is that perfect image, and what we hold ourselves up to is, I want that same image. And so the stress can be triggered by pessimism of, it's never going to happen, so why should I even try, to those unrealistic expectations or those fantasy or perfectionism features of, and where do they come from? Well, they come from, the stories that we're told, the high standards that the stories that people choose to share with us. They're not typically going to tell us the bad stories. They're going to tell us the most wonderful stories. And so we want to hold up to that. And I was telling stories like, I would get so upset with my family because we weren't taking the beautiful pictures that you'd see on these Facebook, like everybody smile, everybody be coordinated, do the perfect pose, and we're going to get this, it's going to be the perfect background, and then somebody be looking away, or we blink or whatever. And I would just like, I want that perfect family image. But then I have also learned to know that those images that come out when we see the baby crying on Santa's lap, or, the kid that's hanging upside down, I love those images. And I think that's just because it's the reality. And so sometimes we do more injustice to ourselves by creating those ideals, when the reality is it's not helpful. And it creates that inability to adapt or change because we want that perfect scene. And the perfect scene is probably not going to happen the way that we want it to. And so that we're creating that stress on ourselves. And so in being able to be a little bit more flexible, instead of shooting for that perfect image, that's probably not going to happen for the most part. And if it does, that's what you can put on Facebook. But the reality is everyday life is stressful, and everyday life is messy, and it's okay.
Exactly.
Oh, so this is not mine too. All right. Here's the reality. Guess what? Children are going to misbehave. Siblings are going to fight. Beds are going to go unmade. Cars break down. Somebody is destined to walk on the clean carpet with muddy feet. Mistakes will be made. And as mistakes, as counselors, that's what we tell our kiddos. That's where learning happens. So really, truly developing that realistic view of families is critical to reducing stress. If you can give yourself some grace, if you can give yourself some permission to make mistakes, it doesn't have to be perfect, you're going to reduce that stress by just going, okay, and being able to laugh or smile about it. Like, well, that didn't work. So that can help to create just the stress is going to be there, but not to add to our stress by holding ourselves up to a realistic standard.
So what coping skills are you seeing in your children in relation to these stresses that are happening in your family? Are you seeing things like, yelling and screaming, stomping their feet, or are you seeing them use some of the tools that maybe they've been taught at school or in other areas of their life where they are learning how to label their feelings, go and sit down and read a book rather than deal with what's going on right now that they just don't have the capacity to deal with? And so they find some way to disconnect temporarily from that. As long as that disconnection is temporary, that is an appropriate coping skill. It's when they disconnect permanently and never come back that it becomes an unhealthy, inappropriate coping skill. So when you look at the list of, and obviously there are many others that we didn't list here. This is just kind of a starting point. What are you seeing in your kids? Do you need to teach them some more appropriate coping skills to replace the unhealthy coping skills that they're using? We're talking probably primarily about younger children, as we work in the elementary element. But, as these kids get older, you start to see even more detrimental coping skills in some teens as they leave us and move on into middle school and high school. That's when that drug and alcohol abuse may start. That is an unhealthy coping skill. There is something there that they are responding to, and they need to be taught a healthy coping skill to replace that unhealthy coping skill. So we can move on. The anxious child. What does the anxious child look like? So we've talked about what the different stressors look like. We've talked about what their coping skills look like. Anxious children look different in every family. Not all of our anxious children look alike. Some children become irritable, tearful, clingy, have difficulty sleeping. Maybe they wake up at night. Some kids may start wetting the bed as a sign of anxiety in their life, or have bad dreams. In older children, you might begin to notice that they lack confidence. They have difficult time trying new things and seem to be unable to face simple everyday challenges. That could be a sign of anxiety or the effects of stress on your child. They have a lot of negative thoughts. They keep thinking that bad things are going to happen to them. They may start avoiding everyday activities such as seeing friends or going out in public. Some children are just more likely to have worries and anxiety than others. So some of us may see this more in our children than other people do. Children can find change difficult and may become anxious following a move or starting a new school. And children who've had some kind of a distressing or traumatic experience, such as a car accident or a house fire, may suffer from anxiety after those incidents. And so we need to be on the lookout for those. Family arguments and conflicts can also make children feel insecure and anxious in our homes and in our classrooms. And then, as we talked about a minute ago, teenagers are more likely to suffer from social anxiety than other age groups, where they start to disconnect from peers or disconnect from the family, avoiding social gatherings or making excuses to get out of them. So how do we help this anxious child? We need to teach them to recognize signs of anxiety in themselves. So we need to encourage them to manage their anxiety and ask for help when they need it. Things like sticking to a regular daily routine when possible is very helpful in supporting children who have anxieties. So that's something that we do in the classrooms. We make sure that routines are posted. If the routine is going to change, we let everybody know that the routine is going to change, especially if we know that we have an anxious child in that class. We want to make sure that we take extra steps to make them aware of what changes might be occurring in their day. Looking for books that can help them understand their feelings is also a good way to help an anxious child. If you know that a change is going to happen, like I said, in the classroom, we make sure that with those daily changes, but if you have a bigger change happening, like you're moving or you're going on vacation or, something very different than their normal routine is going to happen, make sure that you prepare them in advance and let them understand what's going on and why. Try not to become overprotective or anxious yourself, because they feed off of our feelings. And so while we may experience anxiety ourselves, knowing how to diminish that anxiety in ourselves is going to help our children who suffer from anxiety to not feed off of our anxiety. Distractions can be helpful for young kids. For example, if they're anxious about going to school, maybe you play games on the way to school so that they can draw their attention away from the things that they're worried about and have them, prepared and happy to hop out of the car and go on to school when they get there. Just some thoughts. Of course, there are lots of other ways, and your school counselor and your teacher is always there to help you if you believe that your child is having some difficulties with anxiety or stress. that's what we're there for, is to help out with those things. So one of the questions is, how do you react or respond to your child's stress? So a lot of times, the way we react or respond sets the tone for what's going to happen next. So are we reacting by yelling or dismissing or trying to minimize what's going on? Or are we responding by giving them support and helping them through the thing that they are struggling with that's causing their stress at the moment? We need to recognize the messages that we as role models are sending to our children through these reactions and responses. You know, unless those unhealthy cycles are broken of things that we learned from our parents, possibly that we, you know, on this reactive side may be passing to our own children, then those unhealthy cycles will continue. So the quote at the bottom of this slide is on the back of my laptop, and it reminds me the important role that we play in the lives of our kids and students. And it says that when little people are overwhelmed by big emotions, it's our job to share our calm and not join in their chaos. We are there to help them to take a deep breath and move forward and not add to the stress that they are already under. And then, do you know the difference between rescuing and caretaking? Completing school projects for your children, not with them. You know, anyone ever make their own baking soda volcano without your child and then send it to school as if it was theirs? Allow your kids to make mistakes. Let them make that volcano, but come alongside them and be supportive in that. You know, oh, you put too much baking soda in that. How about you try a different measurement this time? You know, be supportive, come up with the solutions together on how to make an effective project, rather than you giving the child the idea that you don't believe that they can do it and that you need to do it for them. Because that is what comes across a lot of times to our kids when we feel like we have to do things for them. And that is true of our special needs kids as well. You know, if we don't allow them to button their own buttons, tie their own shoes, those kinds of things, and work on teaching them those strategies of how to do those things themselves, then we are telling them that we don't believe that they have the skills to do that, or that they can't learn how to do that. And so it's very important, regardless of the age or skill level of your child, that you allow them to be responsible for doing those things for themselves. Choosing classes in middle school. You know, how many of us as parents are like, oh, I'm going to fill that out and send that back to Miss Lacefield or Miss Buse for my kid that's moving to 6th grade next year? They need to be part of that decision-making process. It's not our school, you know, it's not our classes. We need to make sure that they are making those decisions, and we can still influence those decisions, but we don't need to fully make those decisions for them. What about intervening in tense social situations? How many of us are responsible for jumping in when our children are struggling with a peer? We need to make sure that they have those skills to respond appropriately to others. We can talk through that with them. We can help them to learn how to respond and how to maybe ignore, if necessary, the things that are going on. But jumping in, calling that other mom, you know, and making those things happen in our time frame rather than allowing our children to work through them themselves is rescuing. And children who are rescued too much are not going to know how to take care of themselves when they are adults. Taking care of household chores is important. You know, my kids started doing their own laundry at 8 or 10. And I know some 20-somethings whose parents are still doing their own laundry for them. So those are some areas where we can stop rescuing and start teaching them some ways to take care of themselves. As I stated earlier, I'm an intern here, and I'm also an intern at a transitional housing program in Denton, and I work with 20-somethings who did not learn these skills. Now, many of them have high-functioning autism, or they have some mental illness such as bipolar, and so they were very sheltered and very rescued frequently growing up, and they did need some extra time to learn some of these things. But we're still teaching them at 25 how to manage money, how to develop relationships, how to communicate effectively, like the video that Christina showed earlier, you know, where these are struggles that families have. Well, if we haven't taught our children from a young age to start learning how to manage those things on their own, they may become adults who don't know how to manage those things. And so the cycle continues. So we need to make sure that we are taking care of our children and supporting our children, but not rescuing and being helicopter parents where we feel like we have to swoop in and do everything for them.
So when I labeled this feeling frazzled, hashtag toughest job in the world. As a school counselor, not only do we talk with children and our teachers, but a lot of times we have conversations with parents. And, you know, as parents, we want to do what's right, and we want to do what's best for our kids. But you know what? There are a lot of self-help books, but parenting is the toughest job in the world. It really is. And they don't say that for anything, because it really is. And with each child, you have to parent each child in a different way. They're not cookie cutters. And so what works for one kiddo may not work for another, or in the same child. What works at one time may not work in that next time. And so being able to recognize that you are doing your best, and to give yourself some grace to know that you are trying. But we always, you know, talk about timeouts for kiddos. You're allowed to have a timeout too. So when you are feeling stressed, give yourself a timeout. So they're not just for kids. And it's really important to be able to just model that. So, you know, to talk to the kiddos that, you know, if you're starting to feel stressed, have that dialogue. You know what? I'm feeling my body get hot. My heart is starting to race. I'm starting to feel upset, or I'm starting to feel angry, because you're normalizing those feelings, because a lot of kids, when they don't understand, they become fearful. And so they can become fearful of big feelings, and they can become fearful that it's wrong to have those big feelings. And as we say in the counseling world, it's okay to have those feelings, but it's with those feelings. So to be able to verbalize, I'm feeling stressed, I need to take a break. Because when we are feeling stressed, our brains and our brain chemicals are firing at a rapid pace, and it is hard to be logical in an emotional situation. And so what we wouldn't say to any person on a regular day when we're stressed, we know things fly out of our mouth. We get upset, we get angry. So to be able to take a step back and to say, okay, I need a break, so that you can regulate yourself, and to come, it is okay to take a break from a situation and come back to talk about it. It's okay to even postpone disciplinary situations. When you're mad and in the moment, it's probably the best time to create a disciplinary action at the moment, unless it's unsafe, obviously, but because then you can think through it logically. And when you're thinking through it logically, as parents, you can probably think through it smarter and make through it, instead of making a rash decision like, I want to make this lesson stick. How can I do that? You can do that in a logical frame of mind. But you know what? We are human. We make mistakes. We can become, as adults, overwhelmed by fear, by anger, by hurt, and sometimes we do lose our temper. And so one of the things too that you're also modeling for children is, if you do lose a temper with your child or with your spouse or a neighbor or somebody, showing them also the importance of apologizing. To say, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have talked to you about it, talked to you that way. I apologize. And really, because we find a lot of times children don't know how to apologize. It's the I'm sorry and we move on. And it's like, no, we need to backtrack it. We need a full apology. And so you have the opportunity to teach your kids how to apologize, because that's really such an important skill for all humans. And unfortunately, we don't see that in an everyday situation. And so it's really giving an opportunity for you to model that. If needed, ask another adult to step in. It's the tag team. So whether that's a friend, a spouse, a grandparent, being able to ask for help. Asking for help does not show weakness. It's actually a strength, because you're recognizing I need some help in this situation. And then making sure you're taking time to meet your needs. We call it the airplane effect, when they tell you to put your own masks on before you can take care of others. That's really important, especially in parenting. If you are stressed, if you are run down, then even though, as parents, we want to do our very best, we're not capable of doing our very best just because we're run down. So being able to take a moment to take care of you. And then finding some other activities, taking a walk or participate in a stress relieving activity, just to get your mind, because, stress, when we see kiddos in our office, one of the first things that we try to do is to distract their mind, because their mind is firing at such a rapid pace with those brain chemicals that if we can distract them, it starts to help them to regulate. And so for you as well, if you're under stress constantly, you're in survival mode and you're not able to regulate. So being able to do an activity where you get your mind off of it, and then you're going to be thinking with a clear head, and it will be far less emotional, and you'll be able to think logically through it. Talk to other parents or taking a parenting class. Hello, we're here for you. We're so excited you're here. And then finally, being able to take a break. If you're in a stressful situation and you're feeling like your family is under a lot of stress at the moment, it is absolutely okay to take a break and go have some fun, and go have some fun with your kiddos. So if it's a extended stressful situation, even in those times, find some time to connect with your child, find some time to have fun, because those are the memories that they're going to hold on to. Those are the times that they're going to remember what you did with them. And so it's not necessarily a matter of quantity of time, it's the quality of time. And so being able to connect with them is really important. So if you're feeling frazzled, it's normal. Hopefully those are some tips that can help you. Today we talk about overscheduling, and, listening to people talk about their schedules or their weekends, it seems like children are involved in many, many activities, and parents feel like they are so overscheduled. They're always on the go. And really our world has become a hurry up society. Hurry up and do this, hurry up. It's so fast, and we're constantly firing where we never seem to be able to take a breath. And so Dr. Bill Doherty and Barbara Carlson, they are part of the National Council on Family Relations, created this family time pyramid model, which really at the base of it, you can see the family life, and then the recommendation is educational activities, and then value-based community activities, and then the other extracurricular activities. And, in this family, everybody's pyramid is going to look different, and every family must make decisions about allocating time for these extracurricular activities. But by putting your family first, parents are more likely to be successful in raising healthy children and be less stressed, because at the core is the family, and then being able to do these things with your family. Because I think when we feel disconnected with others, that also creates a stress. So if we feel disconnected because we spend the entire weekend running our kids around, there hasn't been that quality time. We may have spent a lot of time together, but we may not have had that quality. And so really putting that family life at the core center is what they have found. That's why they created this pyramid model. I think that's you, Miss Lacefield.
It's me. Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. Sorry. So what can parents do to help children cope with stress or anxiety? And we've already covered a lot of these things, but I just wanted to make sure that you had a full list. And there's actually 2 slides of these. I'm not going to read every single one, but I think we've talked about this, but I think it's worth mentioning again. Avoid comparing and pushing. And that is something that in our society today is very difficult. We are in a comparison world right now. We are constantly measuring ourselves against, what other people are doing, or maybe I should say what people say they're doing. We have that competitive nature, especially here in the United States, that we want our kids to be the best. We want them to excel. And a lot of times that does add to the stress and anxiety of our families. So setting aside time for meaningful communication with your child is very important. Even like just a quick dinner conversation, and I think there's a slide later that talks about that, but expressing empathy and understanding, providing encouragement. Again, that excessive competition, reducing that, and just helping children really think about those character traits that are most important: kindness, helpfulness, thinking of others before yourself, those kinds of things. Encouraging those things rather than putting an emphasis on success and, achievement, because a lot of times, the reality is someone will always be better. Someone will always do it better and be more successful. And we have to sort of balance that. We want success, absolutely, but we want to emphasize the important things. Avoid phrases such as hurry up. And I'm pretty sure I use that one every day. But you don't want to say, why can't you be more like this family? Or you should have done this, or you should do this. Or it's kind of, it gets to be a habit, right? We don't sort of think about the words that come out of our mouths, and we have to be really careful, because that does shape who our children are and how they think about themselves. Encourage laughter. Laughter is the best medicine, for sure. If you can find, I even sometimes will text just funny memes to my kids during the day. I know I'm probably not supposed to text them when they're at school, but if I come across something, it's like, I just want them to have a little smile and to know that I'm thinking about them. Teach positive attitudes and help your child learn to self-talk. This is critical. This is a lot of what counselors are teaching kids every day. Learn to self-talk and give yourself positive self-talk. Think of good things that you tell yourself, because we get so many negative messages constantly without soliciting them, right? It's the way our world, works. So if you can teach your child to start having those self-confident messages that they give to themselves. And then here's a whole bunch more. Again, we've covered a lot of these, but adequate sleep is a big one. I know one of the things that I encourage parents a lot of times is to avoid TV right before bed. TV or movies, videos really stimulate the brain and keep it going, and it's difficult for a child to go to sleep after that. So I always encourage book reading. I know every time I read a book, it makes me fall asleep, so especially if I'm tired. Be current. Stay in touch with what's going on in your child's world. Ask them questions. It's okay. You're not being nosy, or you're not being, a helicopter parent, because really you need to know what is going on so that you can help them and guide them. Don't be afraid to talk to your children about what's going on in their lives. Look at their phones, look at their tablets, do a search of their history. It's not invasive, it's protecting. You want to be ahead of the game in keeping your child from getting into something that causes more stress and anxiety in their life, and you want to help them process through those kinds of things. Healthy choices for coping. That's really, really important, and I know we already talked about that. Okay, so this is something that I often talk about with my students, and I also talk to parents about this as well. But I think after school or dinner check-ins is a really great tool for just helping alleviate maybe some unnecessary stress. Talk to your kids at dinner. It doesn't have to be a huge, long conversation. It doesn't even have to be every day. Talk about your week at a glance. Talk about what everybody's doing this week. Talk about the responsibilities that everybody has. Don't forget, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you need to empty the dishwasher. Don't forget, those kinds of things. Just a positive reminder and establishing a routine. Sharing a cloud and a sunshine moment. Okay, what is something good that happened to you today? What is something not so good? And then parents work on modeling that reframing. So in other words, if something bad happened to me today, yeah, traffic was bad, but I listened to my favorite radio station on the way home. Okay, so helping our children look for the good. Seeking input for dinner ideas and family activities is something to have a conversation about. Sharing strengths and weaknesses. How do you feel about math? What is something maybe that you're really good at in math, and what's something that you're struggling with? Making the time and space safe for venting. Okay, if a student has had a bad day, it's okay to give them permission to talk about it. You might want to set a timer. Okay, you can be upset about this for 5 minutes. Let's talk about it. Let's get it out of our system. But then we're going to reframe it and we're going to move on. We're going to be able to make it a positive. Share jokes or quotes. Check in on friendship status. What did you do to make someone's day today? And obviously, especially if you're starting this new, a child may not feel comfortable starting to share everything, but give them 1 or 2 passes and then keep encouraging them to communicate. It's very, very important to have that open communication. And then this is just a visual of some community, family, kind of the circle of people for support for you. If you find that you are, really struggling and within your family unit, you're just not figuring it out, please reach out for help. Your extended family, your friends and neighbors, your church, your school, the counselors, administrators, teachers, we are all ready to help you. And then you may even need to go further out to seek medical professional help or mental health services. And we just encourage you to do that. It doesn't mean that you're weak, it means you're strong, like Ms. Buse said earlier. So I know we're running out of time, so I don't want to go too much into this. But when tragedy strikes, wait, is this mine or is this yours, Christy?
It's mine, but
okay.
Because we're recording this, what I'll say is what you could do is be able to reflect back on this. But one of the things that we see in counseling is one of the stressors that we see that it affects even into the school is when tragedy happens, whether it's death, whether it's a divorce, or something unexpected. But a lot of times when we are overcome with a lot of strong emotions, we don't know how to help our children. And so these are just some tips to be able to help you look at and come into a situation with your child, being able to, and just some real quick things to be calm, to be able to acknowledge your own feelings, because you don't have to be strong for everybody, and to be able to take some time for you. Grief is a process, and it's like a tangled up ball of yarn. It's not linear. And so being able to acknowledge your own feelings, and then having those conversations and reaching out to those other people, you're the teachers, the grandparents, the counselors, that we're going to be here to help you. And then just some further ones down there, because I don't want to take up too much time. But all we're, because we are a team and a network, we are here to help our families through tragedies. We're here to support your kiddos, and please always feel free to reach out to us, and we can provide you resources and just be able to love on your child when they're at school with us.
Absolutely. So ultimately, we want you to have these characteristics of a family who deals well with stress, because stress is inevitable. It is something that we are all going to have in our lives. And so just looking at it, that stress is normal and it can be positive and negative. Setting realistic expectations for all family members, minimizing stress by setting priorities. That has really made a difference in my family life. I know, just speaking from experience, to be able to say no sometimes is maybe one of the most powerful things you can do for your family. Being open about feelings and emotions. Certainly there are different levels, kind of like we talked about earlier. You want to be careful that you're having an appropriate level of communication with your child about your feelings and emotions, but it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to talk about it and to share how you're handling it. And then being flexible. I always say we got to be Gumby. We got to just be ready to handle whatever might come our way as a family. And it's easier said than done, for sure. Enjoy one another. Enjoy your time together. Even if it's been a rough day, try to end on a positive note. I think it's a Bible verse, but I always say, don't let the sun go down on your anger. But it's very important to resolve those things with your children so that they can start their day better again the next day. Work together to find solutions, be sensitive to one another's needs, and support family members during times of stress, and then turn to outside support systems in times of need. Absolutely. That's what we want for all of our families. We want that for you, and we want you to feel free to ask us again and to reach out if you need anything. So thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, ladies. That really gave us a lot to reflect on, for sure. And so I feel both encouraged and also challenged, in what we discussed tonight. So we appreciate it. We ask families to stay tuned for some other parenting webinars that are coming our way. And then we'll take a break, of course, for the summer, and then we'll just jump right back into it in the fall. So this is, like I said, a new intentional thing that the district's really wanting to do, just provide opportunities to support families in new ways. And just let y'all know, really, we get it. We're right there in the same boat with you. So thank you, and y'all have a wonderful evening.